All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Those who are joining us may be aware that this is Ocean Week. So, June 8th was World Ocean Day. But here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, we like to celebrate all week long. We have over 20 live ocean events this week with different scientists and explorers from all over the world, including some really cool virtual field trips to places like the Turtle Hospital in the Florida Keys as well. We're going to check out some sea turtle research down in Costa Rica tomorrow. So lots of great events still to wrap up this World Ocean Week. All right, let's shift gears a little bit. We are heading to Norway for today's event. We are joining Pia, and Pia is a marine biologist, co-founder of Passion for Ocean and Rent a Biologist, which specializes in answering questions you didn't know that you had. So today she's joining us from Norway. You can see that she's outside on a ship on a fjord, and she's going to take us on a semi-deep dive into the kelp forests of the North Atlantic. So Pia, it's so great to have you joining us live today.
Thank you for having me. And again, I just have to apologize in advance for any seagull screams or wind coming by or anything like that. I'm outside today because we get sun maybe 5 days a year up in Norway, so have to be outside to do that. But yeah, should I just share my screen and go surfing?
Absolutely. Let's dive into the kelp forest.
Awesome. That sounds like a great time. So yeah, my name is Pia. As Joe said, I'm a marine biologist, and I work with ocean conservation through curiosity and experience and excitement. Now, I am a science educator, and I've been doing this conservation work for God knows how long, from before I can even remember. But I could never really find my, place in this ecosystem that is all these organizations and businesses and everybody talking about all these different things. So 5 years ago, I teamed up with a psychologist, and I found this organization called Passion for Ocean. Passion for Ocean was our little take on trying to fill in that little gap that we see in between all the, what are the problems and how can we fix it? We tend to forget about the why. So why should I care? Why do we do the things we do? Why should you change your life? Because I think barnacles are cool. So that's kind of what we wanted to show. And Passion for Ocean is sort of founded on this idea that long-term motivation to actually want to take care of something has to come from within your heart and in your head. So you have to know what you're supposed to take care of, and you also have to have this emotional connection to it. And we really think that those connections come through positive experiences, like diving with a seal. Something happened with Zoom today. I don't know why, but my videos keep free. They are, what's it called? Like they're lagging, but trust me in that saying when I said that this was an amazing, like a magical experience. And these are the types of experiences that will, make an impression on you. You go out there and you meet these locals and you hug a piece of kelp or seaweed, and you talk to barnacle, and you actually interact with nature. And those experiences leave traces in your soul that will just make you unconsciously or not subconsciously love nature. And we do believe that you protect what you love. And this thing is kind of a little bit of an odd thing with the ocean, especially up here in Norway where it's kind of cold all the time. So we tend to not really know what's going on underneath the surface because you will die of hypothermia if you just jump in there and go out swimming for hours on end. Unlike what you do. I used to live in Hawaii, and out there you could just put on a snorkel and mask and go diving. Here we have to have a wetsuit. And it's a little more hassle, but it's just as beautiful. So we do believe that you protect what you love, but it's difficult to love something you don't know exists. And in Norway, we have the second longest coastline in the world. We have the biggest cod population in the world. We have one of the biggest orca populations in the world. Outside of our coast, we have the biggest, I hate this word, cold water coral reef in the world. And Norway rules over 6 times as much ocean as land, and we are all Vikings. I mean, if you've seen the Viking show, that's from my country. That's where we come from. So if you just skip that whole pillaging thing, that is what we are. We are shipping builders, we are explorers, we are trade people, but we have no marine biology in school today. Now, I don't know how that is in the States, but I think it's kind of sad that you have all this ocean. I mean, it's 70% of the Earth is covered in water, and 99% of all the living habitat on Earth is located in the ocean. And then yet, no marine biology. Nobody in school today knows what this is, and it's right outside our shoreline. So protecting what you love is one thing, but not knowing what to protect is another one. So as Joe said, I specialize in answering questions you didn't really know you had, like the fact that we have a sea spider, and you also have that over in your part of the country, in the world. Now this one is not necessarily it's not particularly good food. It's super skinny, no meat at all. It's not necessarily an important species commercially, and to be honest, we don't really know if it's an important ecological species or a key species. But that shouldn't matter when it comes to taking the effort to protect it. I mean, just the fact that evolution now has spent millions of years evolving this weird thing that's so skinny that its intestines have to be squeezed out into its legs. In my opinion, that's reason enough to take care of it. Or, I mean, how about the fact that we have bioluminescent sharks? If you don't know what bioluminescent means, it means that it glows in the dark, like like a glow stick. It's crazy cool. And I mean, we have those, not just in Norway, but also in the States. And if that is not the coolest thing you have ever heard, then I really don't know what's wrong with you, because this is awesome. And they're so cute. They're like this big, and they are super, super bioluminescent. So if you swim down to maybe 40 meters and turn off your flashlight, you will see this green little shark swimming around, being just Pokemons of the ocean. Or how about this little sea slug that will eat algae, and it takes, it just keeps that part of the algae that photosynthesizes, puts it into these little ridges on its back, and when it's sunny outside, like today, it will just unfold its wings and photosynthesize. So it's creating its own sugar and its own oxygen. So we actually have snails with solar cell panels on their backs. I mean, I think that's pretty we talk about innovation on that, but nature did it. And one of the things that I really want to talk about is how much color that you will see when you dive into whatever part of the world. It's not just the tropics that have colorful animals. And like these guys, for instance, you have this hermit crab, and this is where we come into the biologists are not the most inventive people on earth. They like to be practical about stuff. So you have this this hermit crab that walks around with an anemone on its back. So we call the hermit anemone hermit. And then the anemone is called the hermit anemone. So go figure. Easy to remember, not especially inventive. These guys have this symbiotic relationship where the anemone is, gets carried around. He eats the food, or she or it will eat the food from the hermit crab because it's a messy eater. And the anemone in turns will protect the hermit crab. So if something pokes it, they will spew out this purple stuff that you'll see. It's called the contia, and are these nematocysts. It's like if you have ever been in contact with the jellyfish, it's the same thing. So it's like the cousin of the jellyfish. So it stings. Or how about this? Now this is a typical piece of shoreline in Norway, and you will see these things all around. So we have, just in this picture, 4 different species. You have finger kelp, the winged kelp, the spaghetti seaweed, and I don't remember what it's called, the corallina. And the top three here are super delicious. So if you ever come to Norway, come here in April, May, and these guys will be top notch. They are so tasty, and you can eat them, especially that. I mean, it's gonna sound weird, but that spaghetti seaweed along with chocolate, it's just ridiculous. But again, you see the colors. This purple, now the pink stuff here is actually an algae, except for these two on the left side here, which are anemones. And then you have all this, I think it's pronounced merle. English is not my first language, so I'm just gonna, wing it and hope that I say it correctly. But this is a crust-forming algae that will cover almost all the bottom. So when you come down into the kelp forest, the bottom is gonna be pink. But let's dive in. I promised you to take it down. And this is usually what you see when you put your head underneath the surface. It tends to be a little bit murky because there's a lot of nutrients in the water here. We live in this place on Earth where all of these big currents come up and they just kind of merge and come up to the surface, bringing a lot of nutrients from the deep bottoms of the ocean, feeding this kelp, massive kelp forest. But we want to go deeper. Now, this is me doing what I love to do most, which is just sit super still and watch stuff that moves really slowly, like this one. This is one of the things that you will see if you actually take some time to just observe. Now, a lot of people are obsessed with fish, and fish are cool, but I mean, there's so much other stuff to see. Now, these guys, the long-legged spider crabs, along with their pals, the great spider crab, they like to dress up. So these guys have really small claws. I don't know if you can see the claws in the middle there, but they're not very good for protection. So what they do instead is that they dress up with whatever they can find. Seaweed, sponges. This one's got a little anemone hat, and he just carries it around, pretending not to be visible. You can't really see me now because I'm part of nature. But these guys are so good at camouflage that you really have to look good. Stare at one point before you see them. And again, there's a lot of other animals playing dress up. This one's sort of like dressing up, dressed down. This is a nudibranch, and a nudibranch is basically a snail that has just forgotten to get dressed that day. They are naked snails. They have no shells, so instead they just have super nice colors to sort of tell everybody else, I'm poisonous. No, wait, venomous? Okay, either one of those. And they come in so many different colors. These guys tend to eat anemones and jellyfish. They do the same thing as the velvet silk snail, except that these keep the nematocysts, and they will use it for their protection. Is my sound okay, Joe? Is it a lot of background noise?
There is a little bit, Pia. I'm wondering if it's maybe a little bit of the wind, or did some people come on deck?
Yeah. There was some people coming up.
Yeah, and that's okay. I think it's the wind is starting to pick up a little bit.
Okay. I'm going to try to see if I can just talk in here. I don't have that many slides left. I'll be quick. Okay. So, moving on. Now we come into the humor section of biology. And bear with us, you will be just as brainwashed if you ever go into biology. So this is what we think is fun. So this snail, I don't know the English name for it, but in Norway we call it the butter snail. Now butter snails are usually really fond of eating the type of sponge that we call the bread sponge. So you find butter on bread, and then we laugh and we pet our, our own little shoulders, and we think we're really humorous. But they're really cool, and they look like these little molded pancakes. And there's a lot of these nudibranchs around as well, but again, they're so good at camouflaging that you really have to watch closely, really look to see them. And one of the cool things that I really like to talk about, and when I find these, I am super excited. Now, this does look like a common shore crab with some eggs, right? That is not correct. This one is actually a male, and males usually don't really have eggs. That's usually the female's job. Now, this one has gotten a parasite, and we call these parasites zombie parasites. It's a rhizocephala, which just basically means root head. Now, these little parasites, type of barnacle, they infest their host. They start to just make this little web around the host's intestines, and when they are happy with that, they will send some new web stuff or roots up to the host's head. And the host, they are just like, I'm pregnant. I'm super happy about this. So they will tell the host that, you're pregnant, send all your nutrients down to me, spend all your time polishing me and taking care of me, make sure that I'm happy. And these guys are so virulent that they will even make, as you see here, a male crab go around looking forward to becoming a mom. So it's kind of cute in a horrifying way. So again, that's what we call it the zombie parasite, because they will literally take over the host's head. But the ocean gives us so much more than that. This is one of the things that I really love about this. Something happening. This is really a great little clip that I'm gonna see if I can send it to you, maybe so you can actually see the whole forest. But the kelp forest is such an amazing and wonderful and just calm place. So everything goes in 4,000 kilometers an hour on that, but then when we're going into the kelp, everything just slows down. It kind of lags a little bit like it does here, but you know, I hope you get the point. Down here you have again all this pink stuff that will cover the ground, and the kelp forest is actually responsible for producing 25% of the oxygen that we breathe. So 25% of all the oxygen we breathe is just created in this kelp forest. It covers a massive amount of shoreline all over the world, and it captures so much carbon that it's almost ridiculous. I mean, the rainforest is nothing compared to the kelp forest. This is our biggest carbon harvester. It is also protecting our shorelines for erosion. So we'll just sort of stop all this energy from the waves that comes in. And it will be a safe place. It's feeding grounds, nursery grounds for millions of little animals. Lots of fish, sea stars, sea urchins, all that stuff. I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna stop a little bit because the wind just picked up. Is that okay? Now, what I really want more people to know about the ocean is that we can learn a lot, not just of it, but from it. This little jellyfish is one of my favorite examples on why we should keep taking care of just random animal species. Some scientists, a bunch of people who just happened to be in the right place at the right time, they figured out that in this jellyfish, there's this protein called the green fluorescent protein. The green fluorescent protein has turned out to be the most important protein in medicine ever. No, not ever, that's why. But it's been super important when it comes to cancer research, Alzheimer's research, and it does all these things. Solved 8 different medicinal mysteries, and it's won a Nobel Prize. So I think, if you want a little protein from one little jellyfish, is it a lot of noise now?
Yeah, the wind really picked up, Pia.
Yeah. So, is this better? No?
A little bit, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to sit like this. Okay, so I only have a couple of slides left, and then I can go downstairs and answer the questions another place. But my point was that if one little protein from one little jellyfish can do all of that, imagine what treasures are still down there. We also have these sea squirts that turn out to be the only species of animal, or the only types of animals that actually produce cellulose. And you guys are hopefully familiar with cellulose, which is sort of usually a plant thing. And you use it to make paper, you use it to make clothes, you use it to make biofuel, you use it to make plastic, you use it to make anything. And these guys grow so much faster, and there's so much more space to actually grow them in the ocean. So this one is a really, really, really interesting commercial species. And they are also highly productive when it comes to filtering the water. So these are just basically biological filtering systems. Now this one is one of my favorite. This is the giant nemertean. It looks like a piece of chocolate sauce. It does not taste like chocolate sauce. It actually has this nerve poison in its skin that it what is it called? That it lets out when it's annoyed. So if you put this one in your mouth because you wonder if it tastes like chocolate sauce, you will get a numb tongue, which is very unpractical. But it turns out that you could actually use this nerve poison to work on heart problems, stuff like that. So it's been used a lot in medicine as well. And it happens to be the longest animal in the world. So this one can actually grow up to 55 meters. That's longer than a blue whale. So the blue whale is the biggest animal, but this one's the longest. That's kind of everything because we have them right underneath our dogs. So one of the things that I really wanted to just let everybody know, so I don't know if there are any other science communicators that was going to look at this, or if there are any researchers that communication is key. We really need to show how great the ocean is, not just point fingers and tell everybody how much we messed up, but also talk about all the fun stuff. And now the birthday party's coming, so I'm gonna be quick about this, because my point usually, this is how you get the next generation of researchers, not like this. Being inside tends to be boring. I have a lot of letter combinations up in my head, and I could not sit still for a minute when I was your age, or not even now. Go out there and just explore the world with all your senses. Really what I want you to say. So I hope this has been a little bit inspiring, and I hope you guys really kind of want to go out exploring the kelp forest. I think you have some pretty decent kelp forests along your whole shore, so get yourself one of the dive masks and go out and have fun. And if you want to reach me anywhere, you know where to find me. Just find me on social media or send me an email. Thank you.
All right. So Pia, let's get you to come back from that screen share. And let's do a little pan around so that the students can see where you are right now, why it's so windy. Yeah. You are out on a fjord, out on a boat. Let's take a look at that fjord action.
It's the Norwegian capital. It's called Oslo. This is downtown Oslo. So I am on a boat called the Ocean Opportunity Lab, which is the birthday girl today owns this boat, and it is a co-working space / innovation hub / acceleration place for startups, and it's just so many fun stuff. So many fun things happening here, and also wait. So this is the opera and stuff. We have some floating zones over there.
What's that big ship across from you? Is that like a car carrier?
Which one?
The big blue one. Yeah, the blue and white one.
Yeah, that's one of the cruise ships.
The cruise line?
Yeah. I had a little hope that they would go, not extinct, but go bankrupt due to COVID, but they didn't. These ones, this is a really cool. So we have this thing called fjords. So Norway is just carpet bombed with these zigzag things, where the ocean just comes into these long fjord systems. And the Oslo fjord is really closed off, so you have all of Skagerrak, and then it narrows down, and all the water passes through this narrow passage, and then it opens back up. So this is the inner part of the Oslo fjord, and having all these boats, there's a lot of cruise ships and a lot of commercial charter boats in here that dump their sewage. Just kind of, over fertilizes.
Pia, we just lost you. You hit an angle where the wind really got the microphone.
Yeah. I'm gonna just close. I can still hear it. I'm gonna just climb down. I'm gonna go back inside, so you can just talk a little bit among yourselves, and I'm gonna mute myself.
I'll get the students ready to start with a little Q&A action. So I do want to give a shout out to the groups tuning in via YouTube. I know we have a group in New York tuning in. I know Miss Ricardo's grade 4-5s from Mississauga, Ontario are tuning in. So do send in some questions via the chat and I'll get those. And then Miss Martin's group joining us from New Jersey. If you want to start raising your blue hands, if you have any questions for Pia about the ocean, kelp forest around Norway, any of the cool creatures she showed us, it's all fair game. So she's a marine biologist and can answer a lot of questions about the ocean life. So we'll let Pia settle in for just a second, and then we'll start passing on some questions.
There was a little bit of shouting here, but no wind, so hopefully this will be okay.
Yeah, I think without the wind, it makes it a lot. We can hear you clear.
Good.
All right. Yeah, let's roll with that. So Pia, the first question I have coming in is from online. It's from Santino. And they're wondering, how big of an area do the kelp forests cover in Norway?
We're not really sure, but like as a rule of thumb for all around the world, we would say 1/4 of all the shorelines is covered in kelp forest. And I think that's pretty much, I would say it's probably even more up here. You will find kelp forests wherever you will find the shorelines. except for the Oslo fjord. So we kind of killed it off here. There are some fjord systems where the sea urchins have eaten it away, but go anywhere around the Norwegian coast and you will find kelp forests. Super easy to find. Yeah.
Very cool. Now I'm curious, the average temperature when you jump into the water, because we do cold water diving here in Canada, it can get pretty cold. What's the average temperature when you jump in to the water?
Oh, kind of depends on where we are. Like in these closed off fjord systems, the temperature can reach up to 25, like that's just the surface temperature, 25 degrees Celsius. I have no idea what that is in imperial units, but maybe
20,
I think
25 degrees Celsius seems pretty warm, but that's
it is
surface.
pretty warm. That's just surface water.
Gotcha.
Normally, because we get the Gulf Stream as well, so it's usually pretty warm temperature. So all year round, I would say maybe 5-6 degrees Celsius as just a regular rule of thumb. A little bit warmer in the summer. So in the summertime, it can get up to 18, 19, I would say. But then again, that's only just the top 5-10 meters.
Okay. So David wants to know, so this, if you can think of any species that you could find in a kelp forest off the coast of the US that are similar or maybe same species you might find in Norway as well.
Yes, that's really interesting. Actually, I have a friend who did her master thesis on these snails, and she DNA'd, she was in the US doing DNA barcoding in the snails you had there and saw if there were the similar here. So some of them are the same and some are not, and that's just the slow moving ones. But then you have the floating, the pelagic stuff. That's the beauty of the ocean, because you can really, it will just float wherever the currents go. So you could actually find the same species. Now the jellyfish that I showed you, you have the same one, but you have the same genus, but not the same species. So you will find very similar species. You will find the coralline algae. You will find the, a lot of the typical shapes and colors over there, but not necessarily the same species, because almost they're cousins, I would say.
Okay. So just a reminder to our students in New Jersey, if you raise your little blue hand, or you can use the chat bar and the virtual hand. There we go. Now they're coming up. Okay. Let's see. Lou, do you want to unmute your microphone and go ahead and ask a question?
So, what's the weirdest thing you found while diving?
Oh, I've seen so many weird things. So there's a lot of trash underneath the surface. And I should probably not say this in this audience, but there's been a lot of adult toys laying around. But I found a whole bathroom. That was kind of weird, because I just found a sink at 10 meters, and I figured, okay, this is kind of weird. And then I followed it and I saw the piping systems, and there was a toilet, and it was just like somebody basically just picked up a house and just dropped it into the ocean. And it's pretty odd, I would say. But the weirdest things are definitely man-made stuff. In the Oslo fjord, the whole bottom area is covered in cars and boats and hairbrushes and clothes and plastic bottles, and it's horrible. But I think one of the weirdest things in that sense were when we were out diving, we had this underwater cleanup, and another one of the dive crew said, well, we found this semi truck. So they found this car battery, and they figured, okay, we'll just take that one up. And the car battery was stuck to the framework. And they were like, okay, let's pull the whole thing up. But the framework was stuck to the whole semi truck. So this fjord freezes over in the winter. So probably somebody drove out into the ice and then just waited for springtime to come, and then, out of sight, out of mind.
Thank you.
All right. Well, it's unfortunate, but it's true. I was on a deep sea research vessel for a few weeks off the coast of California, and we were using ROVs and diving over 3 kilometers deep, way off of the shore. And we were finding balloons and paint cans and pop cans and all kinds of fishing nets and things. So unfortunately, that's a really good way to put it, Pia, is out of sight, out of mind. People think, oh, well, the ocean can take care of it or it can disappear into the ocean. But a lot of trash from land and such does make its way into our waterways. So weird to see an entire bathroom, but I'm not overly surprised. Let's see. Josephine, do you want to turn your microphone on?
So I heard that like sharks, they don't actually like attack people. Well, because because they think that they're like turtles or something. I'm not sure if that's because I heard that.
Sharks are extremely misunderstood creatures. So I mean, think about how you guys are exploring the world. You use your eyes, and then you may. I mean, I use all my senses. I like to, taste stuff as well. But usually we use our hands. We pick up stuff, and we sorry.
Okay, we can still hear you.
Yeah, that's good. So we pick up stuff and we kind of we explore it with our senses and stuff like that. But sharks, they have semi-poor vision. They have super good sense of smell, but they don't have thumbs. So when they see something, they're just, well, I'm curious about this. If they attack, it's usually because they just wonder what you are. So they will call like, just like nibble a little bit on you. And then most of the times they would just go, okay, that was horrible because they have some neoprene and people don't taste good. So they, again, if they attack, it's basically most likely because they are just curious at what on earth is this weird creature swimming around in my ocean. And most sharks are really nice, really sedate and happy. So we are invading on their lawns, if I can say that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a quote that I love. It's when people call water shark infested, how can you call the ocean shark infested when that's their home? Sharks live in the ocean. Now, if sharks start showing up in restaurants, then you can say, okay, it's a shark infested restaurant. They're not supposed to be there, but we're the ones who kind of infesting the ocean. We come into the ocean, we use it to play and for recreation. And, like Josephine said, when you're hunting in murky water at dawn or dusk and you look up as a shark, the outline of a surfer looks a lot like a sea lion, looks a lot like a sea turtle. So it's those curious, those exploratory bites, which when it's a 17-foot great white shark, that can be a pretty big exploratory bite. So what's the statistic, Pia? I think it's like 5 to 7 people globally are killed by sharks each year.
I don't remember the numbers, but I know there's a bigger chance of you dying from a falling vending machine or a falling coconut. I mean, cows are more dangerous than sharks to people.
Yeah.
So go out. I mean, don't necessarily go out and hug a shark, but you could just go out there and say, "Hi, shark. Yeah, I'm gonna go somewhere else now."
Observe it from a respectful distance. And the number that scares me is that we're removing 75 to 100 million sharks from the ocean every year. And that's a big deal because they're keystone species and important for ecosystems.
We are the worst top predator. I would actually say that humanity has gone from being a top predator to a parasite at this point because we are not at all using our heads when it comes to how we interact with nature. So yeah, scary stuff.
Absolutely. Amber, do you want to pop your microphone on?
What's the most interesting thing about being a marine biologist?
I feel like I don't know if you've seen Peter Pan, but it has this thing about never growing up, and I think marine biology or biology in general is just like being Peter Pan all the time. I love science fiction and fantasy, and I think that's probably why I love the ocean so much as well, because everything is weird underneath the surface. You will learn so much. We have explored, I think, maybe 10% of the ocean, like the bottom of the ocean, and less than 5% of that has been detailed, explored. So we are discovering new species every single day. I don't know, have you heard about the blobfish? If you have not, go Google blobfish. It looks like somebody left out a piece of chicken fillet on the counter, and it's just ridiculous. And these things are not, the fact that these things exist are just blowing my mind. You have this thing called the blanket octopus, where the female is over 2 meters long and the male is 2 centimeters long. I don't know if that 2 meters long is 6 feet. 2 centimeters is 1 inch. I don't know. This imperial system is kind of not what we do, but everything is so much fun. I mean, you get to be a 10-year-old. I mean, I don't know if you remember being a kid poking around in, whether it's the woods or just down in the littoral zone, and finding crabs and sea turtles and whatever. I get to do that every day. It's so much fun.
It is a pretty darn cool job. And, you'll often hear people say things like we have better maps of the surface of the moon and Mars than we do of our ocean. So there is so much left to explore and discover.
I have to say, there's been 12 people on the moon and 3 people on the deepest part of the ocean. 4 maybe now, but there was this, what was her name? Yeah, but yeah.
Catherine, the astronaut, was just down there recently. Yeah.
How awesome is that? She was the first woman to walk in space and the first woman to go down in the deepest part of the ocean. I want to be like that. I want to go up to be like that as well.
All right, really cool. Aubin, I see your hand is up. Do you want to unmute your microphone?
Yeah. Do you have a kelp forest and down the ocean, like really deep?
Oh no! So the kelp forest, like the kelp, is a type of algae, so it needs sunlight to photosynthesize. And I know that in California and Tasmania, they have these massive, the giant kelp that can grow down to 30 or 50 meters deep, I think. So technically, this algae can grow all the way down to 100 meters. But up here, there's, as I showed you in one of the pictures, there's or the video, there's a lot of murky waters here. So when the water is murky, sunlight doesn't penetrate as deep. So up here, I would say like the deepest you would find kelp would probably be 10, 15 meters, which would be 30, 40 feet-ish, but no more than that. And that's the beauty of it as well, because if you don't even have to be good at holding your breath to go free diving the kelp forest. You can just lie in the surface and look at everything. So
yeah, so that big difference, if you're off the coast of California, it's kind of this towering forest, 30, 40 feet. It grows. I think it's the second fastest growing plant on the planet. Like you can literally watch the kelp grow. It grows that fast off the coast of California. But yours is kind of a shorter kelp forest.
Ours, they grow up to maybe 6 meters, 18, 20 feet, I think, at maximum. But while the giant kelp can grow up to 100 feet, I think they are ginormous. So yeah, but I like ours as well. It's not the size that matters. It's whatever it's
absolutely.
Yes, right.
Okay, so we have Saoirse joining us from New York. She's in a science research class, and she's wondering about efforts being made to protect the kelp forest around Norway.
Oh, that's kind of embarrassing because Norway likes to pat. Well, we like to pat our own back and say that we are the world's greatest when it comes to ocean conservation, but we are absolutely not. We trawl the kelp, and we don't really protect it at all. It has not been it's a constant fight, to be honest, to have these marine protected areas. We have some, but they are usually in commercially non-interesting areas, but we tend to focus more energy in protecting the coral reefs, because we do have a lot of coral reefs here, but they're going deep down. Again, no people having any relationship to it, but the kelp forest is poorly unprotected. But again, it's not been a problem up until now, so hopefully it will stay.
Yeah, well, I think what you're doing is really important, getting out there, getting those photographs, showing people what can be found in these ecosystems, and then communication, doing that science communication, getting the word out, showing those sea spiders whose intestines are squeezed out into their legs, and things like that. I think that's what gets people excited. And if they don't even know it's there in the first place, how are they going to protect it?
That's right, and that's my point exactly. So our politicians up here they are absolutely clueless when it comes to anything that has to do with nature. It's so sad to see that one of the richest country in the world, we have such a good educational system, but they have no idea what's going on. And we also have to take a big part of the blame because science has sort of failed humanity in the sense that we have not been able to translate our findings into something that is understandable to people out there. So as a result, we now have, anti-vaxxers, we have flat earthers, we have people who don't believe in climate change, and we have people who actually think that you will get COVID from 5G towers. Again, because it's easier to understand what this one YouTuber or Karen from Facebook is saying, instead of this researcher who will just show me a bunch of graphs and talk with a really monotonous voice so that you fall asleep from listening to him. So yeah, we have a big job to do there. To apologize on behalf of science.
Yeah. Well, that's, for the students joining us today, either on camera or on Facebook, that's another really exciting career that's growing is science communication. So more and more scientists are realizing when they go out into the field, when they collect their research in the labs, is they need people on staff who can translate that video, who can make videos, who can get it out on social media, who can deliver it to the public in exciting new ways. So, you could find yourself in a position where you get to go out in the field and document these really cool expeditions and bring it back to the public, or work in the labs and make that research more accessible. So science communication is another growing field that's definitely worth checking out.
I have to say, going on a scientific cruise is one of the coolest things on planet Earth. I got to spend 3 weeks, when I did my master thesis, I had 3 weeks on a cruise ship around Svalbard, was just on the North Pole, I was counting whales and seals and polar bears for 3 weeks. I was just on deck eating cake, looking at cool stuff with my binoculars for 3 weeks. So that was my job. So do go out there and do it because it's stupid fun.
All right, Ethan, if you want to unmute, you can have the final question.
What's the most like interesting or intriguing thing you found, or like something that looked really cool, or things
that I've seen myself, or just generally in the ocean?
Either one.
Okay. Oh, well, I found my favorite fish when I was 9, which is, I did not know that I was going to be a marine biologist at that time. When I was 5, I wanted to be a dinosaur, and then when I was 7, I wanted to be an astronaut. So when I was 9, I was just poking around different books in the library, and I found this thing called the Gulper Eel. I'm going to write it in the chat, and I think you should Google it. It's also called the pelican eel, and it kind of looks like what you would get if you had Pac-Man and a sperm cell have a love baby. It is just so unbelievably odd looking, because a giant mouth swimming around with this long skinny tail, and at the end of that tail this little light bulb that it uses to attract prey species. And actually, when it comes to bioluminescent, as they're talking about the shark, on land we have maybe 100 species that do this, but in the ocean 90% of all the animals are actually communicating via light. And the deeper you go, the weirder it gets. There's also this thing called, the Latin name is Vampiroteuthis infanalis, which literally translates to vampire squid from hell. And this thing looks like something out of a horror movie. It is really wine red, and it's got 2 big blue glowing orbs on top of its head, and it's got spikes on all of its arms, and it sort of just like turns itself inside out if you poke it. So vampire squid from hell, go Google that stuff as well. And I mean, if you just Google weird animals or weird ocean creatures, you will get I don't know.
You could lose a whole day, I bet.
Yeah, you could lose like goblin shark. That's one thing. Goblin shark is the absolutely weirdest thing that exists on planet Earth. If you've seen that movie Pacific Rim, one of the kaijus, it has to be inspired by this goblin shark. And again, there's a lot of movies that has taken its inspiration from this. If you see Avatar, when Jake is running around in the forest, punching all these trees, that's a Christmas tree worm. It just kind of, blew it up in big size. And if you go and watch Alien, I don't know if you're old enough to watch that movie yet, but when you finally get to that age and see the movie Alien, that is also based on this little tiny creature in the deep, deep, deep sea. So I don't know. Yeah, I could hold a 10-hour lecture on weird shit in the ocean.
All right. So Miss Martin has typed a question to the chat, and I think this is a good one to kind of leave on today. She's wondering how her students can find a way to check out the kelp forest more. Are there resources or a website you'd suggest? A documentary? What would you suggest to get a little deeper?
Well, I have binge watched everything that David Attenborough has ever touched. So BBC, what David Attenborough, it has to be David Attenborough, they have done some, like especially Blue Planet. There's 2 series, Blue Planet, Blue Planet 2, where they touch in on like the entire ocean in general, but they also have these things. I have been using is it PBS?
Yeah.
They have this series called Shape of Life, where you don't not only see, so usually when you have documentaries, you have like, this is the animal, this is where it lives. Now the Shape of Life is, this is an animal, and this is where it lives, and this is how it looks like on the inside, and this is how it's been evolving, and it's really cool. It talks about how different species are interacting with their surroundings and stuff like that. When it comes to kelp internationally, I don't really know, but I think there's what's the name of that again? I got some research papers sent, but I think if you just use Google for all it's worth, Google Scholar in particular is a really good source for good sources. And I know there's that work on this. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Grid Arndal. They have a lot of stuff on seaweed and kelp and stuff like that.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm right with you with anything by David Attenborough is always a good place to start. And both the Blue Planets, I think, have a good little segment on kelp as well, with some great cinematography. All right. Well, a huge shout out to everybody who joined us live on YouTube, particularly our groups in Mississauga and New York. And then a huge shout out to our group in New Jersey, hanging out live with us today. Thanks, Ms. Martin, for bringing your students in with us. And then Pia, thank you for spending a little bit of Ocean Week with us. Thanks for showing us a little ocean action, because none of our events have had that yet. So we got to see a little ocean view. So thank you for that. And yeah, thanks for doing what you do, inspiring people to learn a little bit more about their ocean, and then hopefully become champions of the ocean after that.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I would just like to say that whatever you want to be, go do it. You can work with the ocean. If you want to protect the ocean, every single person is needed. You don't have to be a marine biologist. You can be an engineer. You can be a plumber. You can be a hairdresser. I mean, every single voice counts. And we also need a lot of lawyers and economists to actually go into everything around. I mean, not everybody can talk about barnacles like I do. So we also need the whole system around as well. So I would just, invite you all to join the fun, join the family.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we're going to sign off for today.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.